So welcome everybody as you're starting to join us, whether you're on Facebook Live or here on Zoom. I'm joined by the legendary Don Saladino, good friend of mine. Now, Don, how long? I think I met you first. It must have been, I don't even know, 2007 or
API.
API at the mentorship.
API. I went out there, and that's how I was kind of introduced to Nick Winkleman. But you were our coach at that time.
Yeah.
When we went out through the mentorship program. And I have to be honest, everything about that program was just fun. You know, this has had to be, what's that, 13 years ago now? Probably.
I think so. Were you there with Anthony Renna? Were you on the same one with him, or did you?
I was
you
not.
might have been afterwards.
I was not. I actually hired one of my head coaches for 7 years, Anthony Connors, from that. I brought my buddy Tommy Jacob. Remember Tomas?
Yeah,
Tomas,
absolutely.
Tomas, who passed away 10 years ago now, and you know, it was just a good crew. We just had a fun time. I mean, I think your coaching was still stellar back then. I know you've evolved a lot since then, but you know, it's funny at certain points in your career how you go through different mentorship programs or different certification coaches programs, and that definitely left a good impression on me still to this day.
Absolutely. And so for those that are now with us, I have Don Saladino. He is the owner of Drive Fitness. I mean, Don, you have many, many talents. You know, I know you as a coach. I know you as a social media influencer. I know you as a business owner. And for me, you just have so many different areas that you're interested in. So how would you define what you do to open this up?
Oh man, you know, I'm kind of like, I'm like the connector. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like the connector. It's always tough to describe what I do. Like, yes, I started as a coach. I'm a born bred coach. 21 years I've been a strength coach and trainer in New York City, and despite all the you know, businesses that I've owned, but I'm a connector because I'm not claiming, I don't do what Charlie Weingroff does, you know, and I don't do what Derek Hansen does, but you know, I don't do what Dr. Josh Dines at HSS does. But when people come to me to prepare for roles or sport or whatever it might be, and we have to put the full court press on them, or we have to really make sure we're giving them everything that they need, I involve my team around me. So yes, nutrition has been a passion of mine for 25 years, and training, and still to this day I'm taking courses. And you always have this obsession, Nick, with trying to become a better coach. I'm not saying the best, because who's ever the best? Like, you just always want to improve. And that's why I got drawn into fitness, was because I realized this is the one thing I can kind of control. This is the one, you know, profession that I can go out, and I feel like the time I put into it is what I'm getting out of it. And you know, it's been a great 21 years. It's been very volatile. You know, there's been ups and downs, but I continue to learn, and I continue to get better, and I continue to pivot, which I think is a thing that a lot of coaches don't want to do.
Well, you're hearing that word a lot, especially with what we're facing right now in the situation, the point in time. But before we get into that, because I think the work that you notably have been doing on Instagram and other social channels, for me, you've really set the bar, and you're the standard bearer for how maybe we need to move in this digital era. And I mean that honestly. But talk us back 21 years. What was the spark for Don Saladino to get into this industry? How did it all start for you?
You know, I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player out of college. You know, I really thought I kind of had that path. And getting through college, you know, probably my junior, senior year, I was playing well, you know, playing Division I, hitting over 300. But I just knew my passion started drifting to other things, and that other thing really became fitness, to the point where I was going to pro tryouts. And when I was there, I was very in the moment, but I was also thinking about, all right, getting my workout in before the tryout. It's like, you know, just and packing my meals to the tryout. Like, there were just things that were like almost a little weird at that time. And I started realizing that maybe, yes, it's something I've always wanted to do, but maybe my passions have changed, and maybe my love for things were starting to change. And I didn't really know about personal trainers back then. I mean, this is 1999. And, you know, so I'm coming out of college, and I live outside of the city, an hour outside of the city. I remember talking to my mother telling me, aren't these coaches now, they get paid? I'm like, yeah, they've been around forever, but I don't think they make money. Like, you know, I've always been told I have to make money. She's like, no, you're told you have to do what you love. Like, go after what you love, go after what you have a passion for. And for some reason, the second I heard that from her, it was like 100% validation. Like, the next day I threw on a suit, I had my resume put together, and I literally went off driving. I drove through the Midtown Tunnel. I didn't know north, south, east, west. I just literally was oh, there's a crunch, I'd pull off. There's what's equinox, I'd pull off. And I would get referrals, and I literally for, whatever it was, a day or two, drove in and handed off resumes. And then I was hired as a coach as a big box gym. And I'm telling you, I was never so excited to go into the city and clean up weights, which is what I started doing in 99. I was a purple shirt, you're on the floor training.
The purple shirt.
Yeah, purple shirts is equinox, and you're sitting there making, breaking my ass, making 25 grand a year. But man, it all just evolved from there.
And you know what? You probably wouldn't trade that for anything. I remember I had a similar experience. I used to drive up from Corvallis to Portland, Oregon, 2 hours up to a 24-hour fitness, walked in, put the resume down. I said, listen, I can increase this club's bottom line.
I
can be put.
Of course you would.
I've never been smarter than I was in that.
I love that you did it, but that's you, because you were going and trying to show them how you can add value to their business. That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. And you just asked me, you said you wouldn't trade that for anything. No, I wouldn't. Yeah. And a problem that I'm seeing with some coaches today, and I don't mean to throw them into this bucket, but they're immediately trying to dive into it, but they want immediate return on it. And it's fine. There's nothing wrong with investing and wanting immediate return, but it's not always realistic. And you also have to set your expectations at a certain point where, you know what, if you're not making $1 million in a month, like, don't be depressed about that. It's going to be okay. And a lot of these coaches, I feel like they really should. The first step as a coach, I really believe, besides going to mentorship programs and going and getting your certification licenses and all the stuff that, say it's necessary or unnecessary, but you need to put your reps in on, from an educational standpoint. But you have to get out in the public, and going into a big box gym may not be the worst thing to do, unless you're going to an AP like you went to, 13 years ago, and you can learn from a guy like Mark, or you're able to go under someone's wing where they're really going to take you underneath. I feel like an element that a lot of coaches are missing is kind of getting their hands a little gritty and getting slapped in the face a couple of times on the floor, and understanding what it really is like to have to, work with a group of 40 coaches and have to answer to a training manager. And that's something that sounds like a joke, but the reality is some of my best values in training were learned at that time.
Don, every strength coach or aspiring fitness professional that looks for advice, and they're early in the stages of their career, kind of what we're describing right now, and says, what's your number one piece of advice? I say, go get a job as a personal trainer. And a lot of them kind of look back.
Yeah.
And I say, well, they're like, why? I'm like, well, twofold. Number one, you get a little bit of extra spending money. You're in college, you're on pennies here, so get yourself some dough. Two, it'll provide a platform for you to be applying everything you're learning from your degree. But I'm like, here's the key. In one day, you're going to have to, if you're lucky enough and you can sell yourself and have substance, you're going to have 10 clients in one day. Even if you have 6 clients in one day, those are 6 completely different individuals that are paying for your time. And there's a possibility that they will not continue to pay for your time unless it is justified. And I say, you do not understand what that is going to do to you as a communicator, as an entrepreneur, and ultimately it's going to teach you, you used the word earlier, Don, to pivot and adapt. And what that will do is that'll serve you if you do inevitably go into strength conditioning, where those people are not paying you. They have to be there no matter what. And sometimes we can forget that. And so if we learn early on in the trenches how to communicate with the person, you'll be far better at doing it and communicating with the person behind the player when you get into strength conditioning. And I know for me, I don't know if I've ever told you this, I was a personal trainer for over 6 years. And for me, it was the absolute most formative time and taught me how to communicate. And to this day, I cite it as one of the reasons that I value communication as much as I do. And I would imagine
really
you.
I completely agree. And it's nice when I see a strength coach or a trainer make that pivot and they go and they get their hands wet in something that's completely different. And yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I remember, I think the most amount of sessions I think I've ever done in a day, I want to say was 13. So it's 13. And that's a lot of sessions. That's a grind. That's a grind. It was a long time ago, but it was a grind. But I remember getting to like 10 and being like, come on, I want to keep going. Like you get that second win. But I remember all 13 of those people afterwards. I remember, I think I was walking home. I think I was training in a place called the Training Ground on 72nd Street. This was probably back in 2000, 2001, small personal training facility. I would pay the house, my boss at the time, $25 an hour. charge $100 an hour. I'm a young kid making some coin. But I remember walking home and saying to myself, man, I just, those 13 people couldn't have been any more different.
Yes.
Different ages, shapes, sizes, colors, personalities, everything was just different about them. And the second I saw them come in, we didn't have iPads back then. We had our clipboards, and I was just like, come on, this is what we got. How's the back feeling? What's going on? And you're going in and looking back on it. You're like, yeah, maybe I would have done a couple of things different. Maybe we were back then in 2000, we were doing body parts, and we would have done things a little bit different. But man, we evolve. The good coaches evolve, and the good coaches are still, it's exciting when you go, and you have to admit it. Like if you go listen to someone and you start absorbing some information where you're like, oh wow, okay. It's exciting, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a great, but that's why you're a great coach. So
yeah, likewise. Well, and tell me this, every single time I meet Don Saladino, I feel I meet the same guy with the same energy, the same enthusiasm, the same passion, but more. And so you go at this with a consistency and a hunger. And so for everyone listening, you've been talking about doing this for 21 years. With the benefit of hindsight, describe your process for getting better. How do you continue to stay hungry? And even thinking back to the young Don Saladino, what would your advice have been for him when he's just starting out? I think patience would be one of them, because you are
one of my favorite words. That was told to me by the owner of La Palestra, Pat Menachia, when I started. And I went to open my business in 2005, and he looked at me and he's like, "Going into a big thing here, kid. Be patient." And I just looked at him. I was like, yeah. But like, he was right. You got to be patient, because things are, I feel like, are they hitting? I don't know if it's ever going to hit, because we're just always kind of climbing. But yeah, listen, I separate my career into different pillars here. It's like, there's Don, the coach, there's Don, the business person. There's Don, the influencer who's headfirst into digital media right now. There's Don, the dad, and I'm always, I'm always trying to find ways to improve things. What I have learned over the years, though, and you might have heard me say this years ago, was, throw balls in the air. And I understand the value of that early on in your career, is that you got to give yourself opportunity, and opportunity is putting yourself into good situations to be able to be successful. But at a certain time, I feel like you got to back off throwing balls in the air, because one of my problems for a period of time was that I had too much going on. Yes. And you're trying, and like, this is this Italian household I was raised in, like work, like kind of blue collar mentality, work. And you think outworking everyone is the smartest thing to do. And it's not. It's like, okay, if you have 10 projects going on, you might be diluting 5 of them. Are you better off going with 5 projects and really focusing on those projects? So yeah, there's brands I work with right now, and I've been backing off certain things, because I kind of see what my bread and butter is at this point. And, I see what I have to do that will allow me to be successful. And, yeah, I think that's probably my advice to myself is, at a certain point, kid, back off from throwing balls in the air, recognize what your bread and butter is, and dive into that, and I think that's it.
It's interesting, because next to the question, hey, as a young strength conditioning coach, what should I be thinking about? I think the next question again is, how do I prioritize my time? Which exactly what you're saying, especially now we look at social media, individuals like you're putting out content. Tonight, we are together putting out content, and this is competing with arguably millions of other pieces of content that are being produced right now. What's reflecting on your own process, but even you have staff, you have other coaches that you mentor. How do you walk them through or advise them on how to prioritize their time insofar as it serves getting better?
This is really the question, because all the coaches are at different points in their career. Yes. I had a young coach who started working for me about a year or so ago, young, enthusiastic, strong, the whole deal, shooting all the content with his shirt off. I mean, I love the kid, but he said, he called me, I think it was last week, and he goes, I'm trying to figure out, who do I need to be? Like, what direction do I need to go in? Do I need to be an educator to other coaches? Am I catering to women? Am I catering to men? And I honestly, I said, listen, I don't have an answer for you. I said, first things first, educating coaches, you're just not there yet. To be a Nick Winkelman or to be a Charlie Weingroff, you need to put a lot of reps in, and you need to earn respect of other coaches. You have to, at a certain point, you have to be likable, because if someone is the smartest person on the planet and they can't gel with their community, then what good is it? It's like, it's completely useless. So I really believe that's something that has to evolve. You can embark on that direction, but you really have to have other traits besides being a smart coach. But whether you're training men or women whatever it is. I mean, there's just, listen, I didn't expect to be training superheroes. Like, let's be real here, man. Like, I started as a trainer, and then I really dove into golf fitness because my brother was a professional golfer.
Okay.
And I love golf. And we just, it was the first TPI3, and we went through all that training and just strength and conditioning and learning in the human body. And then out of nowhere, Hugh Jackman hits me up one day through someone I know, and is like, I hear you know a lot about body composition. You're in pretty good shape. I'm like, yeah, I do. It's kind of like my hidden passion. I don't really talk much about it, but it really is. He's like, well, can you help me for this role? And then I dove into it, and I was like, wow, this is fun. Like, wow, I'm really enjoying this. Like, I'm working with one person right now who has a little bit of money, and I could tell him what he needs to eat, when he needs to eat, when he needs to sleep.
Yeah.
And like, they're doing everything I'm saying. And then back then there was no social media. Out of nowhere, like, all these celebrities just started coming to me, and I went with it. And when people call me a celebrity trainer, I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous. Like, I just work with people. I happen to prepare people for pretty big Hollywood roles. And there's a lot on the line here. And I'll get calls from production companies, and, it's like, Don, the deal. We have to do this. And, I mean, that to me is fun, but man, is that completely different. So I was down one path of being a personal trainer, then to a strength coach, then to training golfers, then to working with superheroes, then opening a digital media company. It's like, I'm all over the map, man. It's like, 20 years ago, I didn't expect to be doing all this.
But in one way, you make your own luck. What we've already talked about is you engaged in so many different education opportunities, and you continue to develop yourself. And through all those, no matter what, you walk away with knowledge, but you also walk away with a bigger network. And in knowing you did it from a place of humility and hunger of wanting to get better. And also what I'm hearing is, as opportunities presented themselves, you didn't shut them down. You kind of went where the flow was. And I think in this industry, and I'd love your thoughts on this, we're servants. As you said earlier, you got into this to help others. And there are so many different ways to do that. And one piece of advice I try to put out there is, listen, don't constrain yourself to one way of helping others and others in this community move better, because so many people need our help. I mean, what are your thoughts there?
I think it's a brilliant statement, because you just don't know. You have no idea who you're going to be working with, and you have no idea how that can pivot in another direction. And I can't tell you how many coaches I know have been doing one thing, and then out of nowhere they meet one person that changes their life. And that's the cool thing about this business. It's like, I don't know if you're one of these people who want to be traveling with a celebrity all over the world, or maybe are you going to be, living in Scotland or Ireland working with a professional rugby team? I mean, come on,
thought
man.
that was going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, back at 24-hour fitness, did you think that was going to happen? But you approach things with an open mind. And I think through the whole process, you got to trust your gut. Like, we never know if we never know if it's the right decision. Tomorrow I might make a decision to leave a location of 15 years to go put my club into another spot. It kind of feels right. It's a little scary. It could be a little dangerous, but it feels right to me. So if the deal doesn't work out with my landlord, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to own it. And if it doesn't work out, listen, man, it felt right. The worst thing to do is that when you embark on something and it doesn't feel right, and you still push yourself to do it because of fear. Maybe it's fear of like, oh, I've been working here for all these years and it's a steady paycheck, but man, this is a great opportunity, but I have to take a step back to take a step forward, but it just feels right. I'm not going to do it. Like that, I don't agree with. I buried too many people in my life at a young age to recognize that, like, Nick, unfortunately, we don't know. Like, this could be over for me tomorrow. Like, we have no idea. Like, let's all go for it.
No, 100%. And I think it's not to confuse. You have to persevere through the grunt work. You have to put your reps in. As you said, you got to clean the equipment, so to speak. But ultimately, I think your intuition will still tell you if you're on the right path. And once that intuition starts throwing the alerts at you, that's your internal navigation system. And I think the more self-aware you are, the more attuned to that navigation system you are, and likely the better life's going to work out for you. But even then you got to be ready to pivot.
Well, I got a question for you, if you don't mind. When you decided to move out of the United States of America, right? I mean, think about this right now. You decided to pick up and move your family outside the U.S. of A., right? Is that where you were raised?
Yeah. No.
Right. Okay. Absolutely. So that wasn't a quick decision, right?
No.
But do you feel like it was the right decision?
100%. And it was equal in the emotion of excitement and fear. But even just talking about your facility, if we want to grow we have to go where we can grow, and we have to go where the fertile ground is. And sometimes that means we've got to pick up. And so for me, if you truly want to get better, you've got to put yourself in a position that is uncomfortable. And what's more uncomfortable than a new country, in a new sport, in a high performance leadership role? And so for me, I felt I was capable, and I knew I was capable, but I also knew it was equal in its level of challenge. And whether it's Irish rugby for me, it's you getting a new facility, everyone will have those pieces. And do you lean into the uncertainty? Because I feel when you lean into the uncertainty, as long as you've done the reps, as you said, Don, and even sometimes if you haven't, you got to give it a go anyway. That's where true growth happens.
100%. I love it. Yeah. I love it.
So there's a lot in there that I want to come back to, but let's come up to modern day. We find ourselves notably worldwide and specifically with other events in the United States. Don Saladino, how are you doing? How's your family doing? What's your headspace right now?
Everyone's, it's been really good. I mean, I'll never forget it. This pandemic really hit us on March 16th, which I think was a Monday. I know It was because it was, we had a little birthday celebration for my wife, March 14th in the city. It was kind of like our last hurrah. We were sensing something's going down. Monday night, the 16th, the governor shut down, all gyms. And I'm like, what's this for a week? What is it? Got on with Perform Better, had a full gym sent to my house, installed it in one of our, extra, we have a little extra room in the back, and, been running the business out of there. But there's been a lot of positive. I mean, first thing I want to say is this is, obviously some terrible times for a lot of people. So I don't want anyone to think right now by my comments that I'm saying, oh, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. But, I'm a very positive person. I'm a glass half full person. Let's focus on the positive, because we all know the negative. And this really forced me now not to focus on my brick and mortar to an extent. I'm still obviously have my trainers working, and I've kept 90% of my staff on, and they're still getting paid through all this time. And that's been great. I mean, there's a couple of college kids who are at the front desk that went back home, and, we'll hopefully hire them back one day. But this really made us dive into waters that we never fully dove into or never had the opportunity to fully explore, because we're getting, again, diluted by all this other noise in our life. The 3-hour commute every day, an hour and a half in and out of the city, training a couple of clients on the floor. Great, but not really what I need to be doing to grow my business. There's certain people that I still love working with who I have to prep for roles, and we all help each other out. That's awesome. But, now to actually wake up every morning and to focus on the computer and to shoot content and to engage with people and grow a business. Like I started launching some programs. I mean, it did 100% over every time I launched it over the last 3 months. So there's been a lot of positive growth there, and it's given me an opportunity to look at my brick and mortar location and assess some things that I didn't like about it, that I like about it, how I want to change things. And going forward, like being home with my family, like waking up, going to bed every night. I have dinner with my kids every night.
It's amazing.
I wake up every morning. Like right now, my dogs are sitting over here. Like my kids are walking through the house. I'm able to, run up to the golf club with my son for half an hour and hit balls. Like these are things. I've spent more time with my kids in 4 months than I have in a very long time. And I'm an active father. So you start asking yourself, man, like what type of life do I want to live here? And I think it really opens your eyes in a positive fashion.
Yeah, someone put it to me the other day, he started a business and he said to himself, I want to fit the business to my family. I don't want to fit the family to the business. And he felt I'd been doing that too long. And I'm hearing that exactly in your own sentiments. And so
100%.
If we get into that, then you've been very active on social media and pushing the importance of social brand and social content, but I think doing it in a really substantive, authentic way. It's not looking to be this flash in the pan hype master, but no, how can we deliver truly valuable, substantive online content? So I guess in part, and maybe for you, this is an odd question because you're already doing it, but what has this situation taught you, but taught our industry more globally about remote coaching, how to do it well, and what's important to be successful within it?
The first amount of advice I want to give to people is you got to stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's so much noise out there. And this is not something I battle with, but listen, let's face it, there's got to be a little bit of fluff in there. Like, I put a workout up. Yeah. I put a workout up tomorrow. Maybe my shirt's off, but I maybe do that 1 in every 20 posts. It's not in me to do it every post. I just can't. Boyle still makes fun of me enough for putting up 1 in 20 posts. He's sending me shirtless pics, holding a Bud Light, saying, what do you think? And I'm laughing. So I love the banner, but he gets it. He understands it. If I go too much in the educational direction, I'm going to lose the engagement of people. On the other hand, if I start walking around in a bathing suit all day long, people are going to roll their eyes and be like, look at this idiot. Like, it's just, so you really have to find that happy medium. I'm a coach at heart. Like, I like to educate people, and it really is a little bit of measuring of like, how much fluff do I give, and combining that with stuff that's valuable and that people can use. I'm not a physical therapist. Like, when someone talks about pain, I'm like, talk to Charlie. I'm very, very cautious with my words. So creating content is creating things. My business plan with digital is try and give content that's valuable, that people can utilize. And like, no one, like, if I'm putting up a video of me deadlifting 600 pounds, like, it's like, fine, it looks cool, but who really cares? It's more of it valuable to give people something that maybe they can utilize. And through this pandemic, I was forced to really create things that was probably a little out of my comfort zone. 3 movement, 10-minute circuits. Like, how about this? You guys don't have any equipment. We're do a push-up, we're going to do a body weight squat, and we're going to do a prone cobra because you have no equipment. We're going to run to you. If you can't do anything, let's just do this for 10 minutes. And the thing that's shocking about that is that the best program that Don or Nick can put together? Absolutely not. Will we put our athletes on that? Probably not. But we're turning around to a population right now that's really frightened. They don't have access to anything, and they can't get off the couch. And my thing is it the best? No, it's not the best, but it might be the best for 99% of the people out there. Because these beast athletes that you're working with are these, or like Ryan, when I turn to Ryan Reynolds and he's got to get ready for Deadpool, like, the guy's like, like, it's done. Like, he's just, you're not going to, he's going to do what he has to do to prepare for that role. But the majority of people out there aren't like that. So I think through this pandemic right now, what I had to do is I had to bring it down a notch and say, you know what, I'm going to give things that are going to make people feel good, and they're going to be able to relate to, and they're going to be able to do. And I try and turn around and mix in some. Like the other day, I talked about an arm bar. Maybe people don't find that so interesting, using an arm bar with a kettlebell, or I might be talking about hip mobility. It's still true to my brand.
Yes.
Right. So I have to stay true to that. Have I gained a lot of followers in the last? Yeah, I probably gained 100,000+ followers in the last 2-3 months. But recently I've been losing followers. I can't look at that as, oh, I'm doing something wrong. No one's figuring out Instagram's algorithm. No one has a clue. I speak to Instagram constantly. You ask them 10 questions, they're giving you 2 answers. But you got to stay true to your plan, and you got to stay true to what you're doing and what you believe in. And if you lose some followers, don't pull your hair out. Like, so many coaches are freaking out. I'm like, guys, fine, you lost 100 followers. This isn't who defines you. They could be cleaning out their back end. There's so many things that we don't know about that Instagram's doing, that just put out quality content and relate to your demographic. And I believe everything's going to be all right.
And so, Don, how do you, because this is really interesting for me, there's so much noise on social media. Ooh. So I think the first piece is, the reality is, the song you sing, so to speak, is not going to be the song that everyone wants to hear. And so if you try to be all things to everyone, you'll probably be nothing to most. And so for you talk about authenticity. I think that's a great way to prioritize the content you put out there. I most certainly will not be doing videos with my shirt off, but what I try to do to be authentic to myself is put out quality information through language, through posts that have words rather than videos, because I'm trying to talk about the art and the craft of the spoken word. So that's being authentic to myself and trying to put content out there that I believe can.
Yeah, but that's why you've been successful. Not to cut you in. You're taking ownership, but you're also looked upon now as one of the best in the industry at doing what you do. Yeah. So right now, like, if someone like you, which you're not asking me for advice, but if someone like you was to ask me, I'd be like, Nick, grab what you have right now and run. Like, keep doing what you're doing, and you'll evolve and you'll improve certain things, and that'll all get better. The worst thing to see is when people try and act like someone else.
Yes.
And it's so like, and I'm hearing it. I'm hearing a lot of, unfortunately, male trainers, female trainers, and they'll start talking or how they post or what they're doing. And I'm like, that looks like so-and-so. Like, that's just, come on, man. Like own it yourself a little bit. Like, it's one thing that, like, we all steal a little bit from each other, but come on, create your own little package and run with that. And everyone's so scared about showing who they really are. They just think by copying someone else, well, they're successful, so I'm going to do what so-and-so does. But it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't come off authentic. Charlie Weingroff, who I think is one of my close buddies, and I think is somewhat of a misunderstood coach. People don't know Charlie the way that I know him. And Charlie's got one of the biggest hearts that I know on people. I mean, I think early on in his career, like he would get a little hot and he takes ownership over that. But Charlie's not going to come on an Instagram post and start talking about bicep curls.
No.
But Charlie the other day I've respected one of his posts. He talked about training with machines and how his mindset has really changed. And he's like, I take ownership over it. Like 10 years ago, I didn't understand the importance that maybe, I was just like, this is crap. And he put himself in a light that I really respected. That's Charlie growing. Charlie, out of anyone that I know, has shown the most amount of growth emotionally in a short period of time. And I'm proud of him for that.
I've seen it as well. Even just how he's evolved as a presenter at Perform Better, to what he wears, how he prepares his presentation. Again, he takes the craft of speaking, presenting, and coaching and being a therapist very seriously. And I have great respect, no matter how someone goes about it. If they're authentic and true to themselves and they continue to get better, for me, those are the kind of people I want to be around.
100%. And I've learned, I can't even begin to tell you, I mean, being able to work with Charlie for 8 years and sitting in his office for 2 to 3 days a week and being able to shadow him and talk to him and ask him questions, it's like you become a little bit of a puppy because you want to hear his perspective on things. And he really has an interesting way of articulating, ideas. And it's God that's helped me drastically in my growth as a coach. So it's all good.
And so here's what's interesting. So we've kind of talked about your approach during this scenario we find ourselves in, and how you've been able to grow and pivot but still be authentic, which sometimes is difficult to do. What have you learned about yourself or your practice that you didn't know, that kind of out of necessity you now have observed, that you're like, you know what, I like that, I'm gonna keep doing that, and you're gonna bring it forward even after the COVID scenario is over?
I like working from home. I got to be honest. I mean, I mean, it sounds so simple, but it really is that simple. I think owning my own business has always been a fun thing, but I think the grind of having to commute in and out of the city and kind of live it. I have no problem with hard work, but I also want to work smart. And I think how I was commuting and running myself into the ground wasn't necessarily smart. And it was keeping me from being able to excel. I'm busier now, now that I'm home, than I was working at Drive 5-6 days a week. Like I'm clearly busier, but I have a better quality of life and I'm able to reach more people. And that for me is fun. It doesn't mean I want to stop doing what I'm doing. I just want to start relying more on my team to start, taking some of the work, and I think trusting them and allowing them to run with things. And I've got a manager she's been amazing. She's been with me for almost 10 years. And she's really, when we do this like kind of phase 2 concept, like I'm going to give her equity. Like she's going to become a small partner. Like she deserves it. Like the woman took bullets for me, and she is, like close to family when it comes down to a level of loyalty. So having someone that you really trust like that, on the battlegrounds with you is something that's really special. And that's allowing me now to focus on the things in my business that are going to really help, I think, globally grow the business, rather than, no offense, going on the floor and training 3-4 people. It's fine. It's great. We understand that. But if you really want to grow a business, you have to start being more selective of your time.
Yeah. And each of those people, like a tree, is a branch. And you got to give that branch sunlight to grow. And in doing so, like, you have to step out of their way. You have to create space for them to step into. And that's exactly what I'm hearing you talk about. And we talk about that all the time, even with coaching athletes or clients, is creating space for them to step into and own their process. I mean, I can only imagine with diet, if you try to control every element of it, inevitably that's not going to allow long-term success. They have to own the change that they're trying to be the driver of. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think diet's the best example, because when I sit and I work with someone from a nutritional standpoint, it's not this, oh, well, this is how you should eat, start eating. Like you really have to do some type, and I'm not a shrink, but you have to do some type of an analysis, like a mental analysis on who am I working with here? Because if I hand this person, grass-fed beef and, biodynamic coffee and all this stuff, like they might just be like, screw this. Like, we could show a lot of progress by a minimalistic approach in the beginning for someone who hasn't actually, been drawn to what it is you and I love.
Yeah.
It's easy for us. Like training for us, it's like, it's fun. Like we love it. We're in the battlefields. We love doing it. We love learning, but most of the people out there don't love learning. Don't love it the way that we do. So I think it's really with your staff and specific people, if you know they have it in them, or you're working with them and you need to be working with them, you really sometimes have to assess how it is you're going to approach them. And it's not, as you know, one size doesn't fit all. And that's another problem too. Like, oh, you want to get ripped? Like I had a friend of mine recently, sorry to ramble on this, but
No,
he came to me and it was the most odd request. He's like, I just want to see my top 2 abs. I'm like, top 2 abs? No one's ever said that to me in my life.
It's
they
a
always
starter
say,
kit.
so I'm like, dude, come to my office. I'll take your shirt off. He takes his shirt off. I'm like, go through your training with me. He goes through the training. I'm like, well, I know most of your training because you train with one of our coaches. Go through your diet with me. He goes through his diet. I'm like, do me a favor. And he's like, what? I'm like, cut the alcohol in half, cut the desserts in half for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. He comes in my office. He literally, you can see his top 2 abs because he's always been in good shape. He's always held muscle. He's always trained, but he had like a layer of water over him. And I'm like, it's just too much. He goes, yeah, I'd probably cut a little more than in half. I probably went like almost to like 80, 90% good. I'm like, look what happened. He looks at me and he said some magic words to me. He said, what's next? And this was someone that he never wanted to do it. And I'm like, why are you asking me that? He's like, no, that's how easy this is. Like, this isn't a big deal. Like, I can get away with doing that. What's next? And then we gave him a little bit more of a dosage. That's coaching, man. Like, that's, in my opinion, that's something that people don't want to do. They want to take their magic diet, their magic program, their magic plan and hand it to someone without even understanding who it is they're working with. And that's everything you talk about in your book, like the art of coaching. When I met you, it's about the movements. It's about the exercise. It's about program design. That stuff's important. But you can have the best program in the world, but if you're not getting in here and in here on someone, like, what the hell did you do? You didn't do anything, you know?
So with that, then, what you're getting into, and someone asked me this the other day on a podcast, and I wasn't using the word goals, but what we're kind of talking about here is goals. So for you, what is your process for making your goals with someone or helping someone find goals that are, in the head, in the heart, that are emotionally charged? I mean, do you have a method that you can enlighten us on how you go about it? Because many people set goals that are either unattainable, uninteresting, they're not motivationally ready, they're not physically ready. How do you go about it?
It's funny because this is the one area I've really stayed true to, especially on digital. Because when I'm working with someone one-on-one or when we're in the club, we can get very specific because it's, okay, what changes do we need to make? But when you're doing this on this global platform, and I have 400 people on a Zoom call the other night, all their goals are pretty similar. Like, they're all coming to you. What do they want to do? They want better energy. They want to move better, and they want to look better naked. And it's the reality. I mean, they're not training for Olympic sports. That's really what it is. So what I try and do is, rather than make everything I do about what all other coaches do, and this might be my downfall, what weight loss? I'm like, guys, this isn't a weight loss challenge. Mm-hmm. I'm going to teach you principles right now over the next 4 weeks that you're going to carry for the rest of your life. There's a reason. Guess what? You lost 20 pounds. You put it back on. Yeah, the program worked. Did you put the weight back on? Yeah, put 20 pounds back on. It didn't work. Yeah. I don't care if it was a year later. It didn't work. I need to teach you how to fish. It's easy to go out and buy a piece of fish. I need to teach you how to fish. And I think what I'm trying to do on this digital platform right now with these challenges I'm launching and with these programs is I'm trying to, in every morning, I'm up for an hour answering Facebook questions. I shoot a video. A video takes probably 15 minutes to shoot. And I'm putting that on the Facebook group, answering every individual's question and going, and guess what? Sometimes it's, no, you need to see a doctor. Or no, you need to be patient with this. You need to be true. Like, what are you doing with your eating? Like, are you just expecting this program to work for you to lose 10 pounds? Like, the idea of this program is to teach you nutritional values, training values, how to listen to your body, to understand that you don't need to go in this with a Rocky type mentality. I love Rocky. You've how many times have you listened to that soundtrack? But it also sets a bad example. It's like, let's train through pain. Let's train no matter what. If it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. And everyone in their mind gets this mentality that, oh, this is how it has to be. I don't have it in us. No, it doesn't. Like, start with 5. If you sat your ass on the couch for 365 days last year, and then this year you woke up and you did 5 minutes a day for 365 days a year, that's an improvement. And you know what? You're probably going to see some progress because you're probably going to start making some food changes. You're going to realize you can do this more and more, and you're going to want to do more. And for me, that's really what it's about. I mean, working with someone one-on-one is easy because you can really dive in and figure out and talk to them. What are your goals? But when you're doing this whole global platform out there, my thing, it's not about losing 30 pounds or doing a 21-day fix, because they're not going to keep it off. The majority of people aren't going to keep it off. I say this to all my people I work with. I'm teaching you things. You're 80 years old. You're going to be thinking there's going to be some. That was you.
Yeah, no, we're back. We're back, Don. No,
Perfect.
I think we all caught the last part of that. So no, it's
Perfect.
perfect. So let's unpack this goal piece in your specific comment on the emotional side a little bit more. And so what I'm interested to understand is, we talk about getting to know your clients. So let's put you back. You're in the training facility. You're working one-on-one, because still a lot of remote coaching nowadays is still going to be working one-on-one or with small groups. So that interpersonal connection, even though it's digital, still might be there. What is your advice on how to effectively get to know someone so that you can start to, let's say, get the raw material you need as a coach to build a better relationship?
I really think the first thing you have to do is have a conversation before you even get them on the floor. Like, you have a client coming in who's going to invest money in you and invest money in the gym. It shouldn't be this quick, 3-minute process of like, oh, how you doing? Oh, you have back pain? All right, let's go. Like, it shouldn't be that. It should be obviously a questionnaire, and it should be a little bit of a conversation where you put some time in. I mean, these people who pay for one-on-one training, especially in New York City, are investing a lot of money. If you can't sit there with someone for 30 minutes and have a cup of coffee and buy them a cup of coffee and see if learn about each other a little bit, great. Like, I think if they're willing to do that, that's a huge part of it. And then I 100%, after you find out everything, their health questionnaire, their personalities, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, are there specific movements that they hate to do? Like, I just like to know all this stuff, because if someone's like, I hate squats, I hurt my knee squats, like squatting, like, you know what, I might not get them doing anything that looks like a squat. Like, maybe it's a split squat. Maybe they can't even do that yet. Maybe there's some issues that I'm calling Charlie up on and saying, come on in here, man, I need you. So I think it's, really, understanding them from a personality standpoint, but really getting to know what their history is like. And then, you have to screen them. Like, I don't like, unless you're a coach like yourself who can bring a young athlete onto a field and watch them move in a group. And then I know this for a fact, you can bring someone on a field without screening them if you wanted, and you can watch them move and you can assess them as they're moving. Like, it's just something a good coach can do. So, but most coaches out there, they're not Nick Winkelman, so it's, my buddy Brett Bartholomew.
I still screen.
And I still screen, but I'm just saying like, absolutely. Someone like you or someone like Charlie, yes, but I still screen. Like, I still, do I use an FMS? I use an FMS. And you know what? If there's a red flag that goes off, they go to Charlie, and Charlie will run them through an SFMA or something else that he feels that's suitable. And I always laugh how people knock the FMS. I'm like, it's a great tool for coaches. It's giving us some idea on a direction, and then you can involve, like I said, I'm a connector. I can involve my team. Anytime I can involve my team, I involve them. I love nutrition. I can talk to people. I can have any nutrition conversation. I'm trying to involve my nutritionist every time. I want my team involved. I want people to feel like that they're going into a facility and they're almost like a professional athlete, that they're getting, people are like, obsessing over them, gawking over them. They're getting all this attention. And that's why our retention is outstanding at our club.
And Don, has that always been a natural quality of yours? Because what you're articulating there takes tremendous humility. You got to be able to take your ego and your knowledge at times and suppress it or bring it back to let others step forward.
I was born with that.
You were born.
I was the kid at 18 that would pull over and ask a gas station attendant for directions. I never with a woman in my car. I never minded asking for help.
You're a unicorn. I mean,
no, man, I never minded asking for help. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, I can't tell you the environment that we created at Drive. I can't tell you how many times I've called a PT over during a session in my club and said, can you take a look? Fantastic. Or a fellow trainer friend of mine, like Tiago Passos, who worked for me for over a decade. We'd be working on some kettlebell stuff, and I'm looking at something like, T, come here for a second. What? Yeah, take a look at this. Something looks weird in the knees. I can't pinpoint it. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, just have them the cue you're giving, have them give this cue. And we would just cue them a little bit differently. And out of nowhere, you understand the importance of cueing.
Absolutely.
It's like you could just give a cue to someone. I'm like, yeah, I was saying that, but it wasn't clicking on this individual's head. That is the environment that I love and that I created, and that the coaches now, it's not your clients, it's the club's clients. Like we're all in this together, man.
Yeah. And so you're starting to get at the point I said I wanted to chat with you specifically about and unpack. And that is, Martin Rooney and I were chatting about this the other day. We talked about this whole idea of coaching as being the what we do and the how we do it. And so the what is, it's the program design, it's the diet, it's the facility, it's the tangible, visible stuff that we know, we love, we read about, and definitely sexy. The vast majority of stuff that we're looking for on Instagram, the new drill. But I think with everything I'm hearing, and you've modeled it in your communication on this call today, it's how we get the stuff off the program into the person. So let's just ease into this topic. What's your own practice, your own belief around the importance, call it of communication, call it connection, but the how of your coaching?
The how of my coaching. I think the one thing I've realized at a really young age, and I knew this back when I was at Equinox, was every client you have is going to come in as a different person on any given day. And what I mean by that is, I can be working with a guy by the name of John Smith, and John could be a happy-go-lucky guy. The second John walks in, I know him well enough to where I can look in his eyes and be like, oh shit, what happened? Something happened. Like, you know what I'm saying? And that is, I think that's something I'm not sure you can teach. That's something I know you have. I know great coaches have it. But I think being able to look at someone and that you're not coming at them with the same exact temperament every day, the same exact formula every single day. That's why I become successful in this business. Is it because I'm the smartest coach in the world? No. Is it because, I'm the, whatever, am I the strongest? No. It's because I have an ability to adapt to each individual every day that they come in. And I'm able, no matter what, to allow them to feel successful. I don't care if the person got off a plane on a 21-hour flight from China and they haven't slept and yes, I will turn around and I can enable them to feel good about downshifting and making it more of a recovery session. I can make them feel good about hydrating, or maybe doing a 120 beat per minute treadmill walk, just to kind of get sweating and get moving and allow them to feel good about themselves after a dynamic workout. That's something that I never really had on, but I've recognized it is an absolute necessity in being a great coach. Unless, listen, you could be a collegiate coach where you can just yell and do it my way or the highway. Yeah. That's a different element.
Not paying to be there. Yeah,
because they're not paying to be there. I mean, some of them are in a way because they're scholarship athletes.
Sure,
but
sure.
Also a coach very well can say, "Get out of here. You have a bad attitude." With me, it's different. I'll never forget one of the biggest, I can't mention his name, but one of the biggest, most recognizable names on the planet. You can go to any continent, ask any person if they heard of this individual, and they'd say, absolutely. It's probably one of the most well-known names of all time. Came to me years ago. Him and I worked together for 2 years. And I run him through an assessment, and he looks at me, he goes, Don, puts his hand on my shoulder. He goes, let me tell you something. I see what you're doing here, and I respect it. And you came highly recommended from some pretty good people, pretty powerful people. But let me tell you what it is I want to do. And I've been to 100 coaches in the past that try and make me do breathing and movement. And I know my body's messed up. And I said, listen, man, I'm going to make you a deal. If you can give me a few minutes of foam rolling on your own before the session, and then just allow me 10 to 15 minutes max to work on a dynamic warm-up, some movement, everything. And then guess what? It's bodybuilder central, baby. Like we'll go in and it's
the gun show. Yeah,
pump time. Yeah. Am I going to have you do a vertical press? You have no external rotation in your shoulders. Let's do a landmine press. Promise you allow me to coach you. He goes, deal. And we worked together for 2 years, and we had a great relationship before he ended up moving. So that's the point. Like, first off, it's my livelihood. 1, 2. In the back of my head, I never want anyone leaving with a bad taste in their mouth. I knew, listen, could he have had a little bit of a different program? 100%. But what we did actually improved him over 2 years as he was getting into his late 60s, early 70s. It actually improved him. And so who's to say what I did was bad? I kept the guy engaged. He got into better shape. We actually reduced pain and injuries because I had my team involved in it. And I thought that was a good way of approaching it. Now, if a coach walks in and looked at what I was doing with this guy, why is Don doing that? Like he's doing lateral raises and he's doing shoulder presses. Maybe it's not on a full, vertical pitch, but it's on a 80 degree incline. Like, why is he doing that? Because he doesn't know the conversation. And that was a problem that I had with myself growing up in this business. Is I would walk into gyms and immediately judge people by looking at how they would train. And now I'm almost upset with myself for doing that, because I'm like, you didn't know the full story. You didn't really know why that person was doing it. You were so quick to make judgment without actually knowing the big picture.
And so I hear three things in there, Don, that are really interesting. One is what Luke Richardson, who you might have met him when you're at AP.
Yeah, he was at AP.
Bearded, scary guy. Absolutely.
He went off to some NFL team, I think.
Yeah, Denver.
Yeah.
He won the Super Bowl at Denver. Yeah.
Awesome.
And so, he told me when I interned under him that you have to be a chameleon. And let me just qualify this. We're not saying being a chameleon in that you're disingenuous or you're not authentic. But if normally I'm a high energy, high tone individual, I might need to tone it down if I get that soft spoken introvert who's a bit more intellectual in their process and is going to be scared off by loud noises. I can still be Nick Winkleman. You can still be Don Saladino, but we have to know how to adapt these certain parameters. I've got my DJ board right here, and it's almost like the bass, the mids, and the high. How can I turn these just a little bit to make this mix go a little bit better in their experience? So that's number one, be a chameleon. Number two is you got to be a negotiator. I don't know if you've read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, but for me,
no, I haven't.
Oh my goodness. So there you got to have a book recommendation on the podcast. So that's number one for me.
I'm writing this down.
Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. He's got the FM DJ voice when you're doing your negotiation, and he's an FBI negotiator. But yeah, you have to know how to upsell. You got what you wanted, those safety parameters with your client, and then he or she got what they wanted. And then the final piece is this: psychology, and obviously call it buy-in, call it belief. But if I don't have their psychological buy-in to what I am doing, if they don't believe that this is a benefit for them, even if the industry says this is the best possible program, we talk about placebo, there's also nocebo. I'm going to start to say, this isn't working for me. This isn't jiving with me. And just by the fact that that's the psychology going through me, I can have a negative effect in the same way that I can have a placebo effect, which is a positive just based on the psychology of the situation. So is that a fair synopsis there? Do you agree with those three ideas?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's, you summed it up beautifully, but,
and so
so much of sorry to interrupt, but so much of this comes down to psychology and understanding communication. And I think I'm never telling a coach to stop getting educated. It's something to this day. When I have time to take a course, an online course, whatever it might be, I'm doing it. But, it also comes to a point where you have to, like, okay, you've taken 200 certifications. That's great. You're still training 10 people a day and you're not making six figures yet. So let's talk about why that's happening. Because my main question is, are you happy or unhappy? If you're happy doing it, then great. Like if you're content with your life, you're more powerful than most people that I know. But a lot of people, they want more, and they're saying to themselves, well, I'm doing this now at 30. Can I do this at 40, 50? Like something's got to change. And that's when I get a little frustrated, because I don't necessarily see people exploring the other things in life that's going to help them become successful at business.
Absolutely. And so let me rewind the tape. You said something really interesting earlier, and that is that this kind of quality you have about you. One, the humility, the ability to ask for advice. You felt that you came into this world with that, but also let's say that temperament to be able to adapt, to be able to get to know people. Pivot is the word we've been using. But what if I put you on the spot and said, hold on, okay, you have to take a group of 10 coaches who don't have that quality. They're not good at connecting with their clients. They're not good at asking the right questions. They're not seeing the forest for the trees. They're not identifying this person's having a bad day and they need to adjust the program. And I'm putting you on the spot because I know it's in there. What would be the call it 3, 5, 10, I don't care. What would be some of the pinpoint principles that you would want to point them towards and just say, start to reflect on this? What would you tell them to start to reflect on to at least get closer to improving how they coach?
I think it's an amazing question. I think first things first is that if you had someone come into me and they just can't communicate, they're just a poor communicator, then I would have them become somewhat of a robot. I'm like, all right, well, what's your standout? They might turn around and say, no, I'm really smart at this stuff. Like program design is my wheelhouse, and I'm more educated than most coaches out there, and I can. Okay, so let's play to that card and you know what? Become more of a robot, because that's their personality. But while they're doing that, and while they're coming in and saying, this is our program today, and we're going to run through A1, A2, and A3 as our warm-up, and then B1 is going to be our power, and they're running through all that, and they're very militant with that, which is fine. I'm also going to challenge them and say, all right, well, what are the traits you feel like you're missing? And then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to try and get them mentored in those categories. Well, you know what? It might be, how about empathy? We don't talk about empathy. You know, like, all right, well, have you donated any of your time? Is this something that you're just, why don't you do it? Well, I don't know. I don't have much time, but it makes me feel good. All right, I'm going to challenge you then. Why don't you said you like going to church as a kid. Like, why don't you go? Like, I'm the head usher at my church. Like, I donate time to my church weekly to try and help out. I'm challenging someone now. Get yourself in that environment. Let's get yourself out of your comfort zone. It's no different if there were specific characteristics in someone's training that might have been lacking early on in their career. Well, it was lacking 10 years ago. Why isn't it lacking now? Well, I got help. I got work. I went and I took courses and I learned about this. And wow, this, taking this course with so-and-so really catapulted me. I said, all right, well, have you taken a speaker's course? Have you taken a public speaker's course? Have you seen yourself on camera? That's a little bit shocking. The first time you start seeing yourself on video, as you know, you're like, why am I saying that so much? Why am I rubbing my nose so much? When I walk into a room, I look really awkward. There's certain things that are so valuable early on. When I would do a video at Revolution Golf or some other company, and I watch it, in the beginning, I'd be like, wow, I don't really like what I see. And then out of nowhere, I would see when I would laugh or have fun or be natural. And the best advice someone told me about dealing with a camera is just picture someone's face you're really comfortable on the camera and just have a conversation with that person. So I know I'm kind of rambling off that right now, but I think the point is the point is that I think we have to recognize those 10 coaches. I would have them write down, guys, what are 5 things you're great at? 3 to 5 things, write down what you're exceptional at, that you feel like you really stand out. And don't worry about it. Like, no one's going to judge you on having an ego now. I want to hear that you are the shit and so-and-so. And then write down 3 to 5 things that you may have gotten criticized in your career on, or you feel like that that you see some coaches that are better than you at performing. And then I would sit down and almost have a little Tony Robbins session with them and say, all right, let's start breaking this down a little bit. And how can we improve those areas? And I feel like nowadays you can almost improve everything. I mean, when it comes down to one thing, and that's being empathetic, I think that's something that's tough to teach, because I feel like you either have that or you don't have that. And probably the thing where I waste a lot of time on is I spend too much time talking with people and I give them such a great pride. They're like, how do you do? Like, that's going to take a lot of time. I'm like, yeah, it's just what I love to do. It's what I do. Like, I just, so I think that's something that's tough to teach. But otherwise, to answer your question, I'd have them write down 3 to 5 things they're great at, 3 to 5 things they're not good at. And we literally pick that apart and try and figure out ways to kind of up their game in those categories that they're not good at.
Okay. So you've said some really interesting things there, and you've put it in a way that I haven't thought about before. And the first one that stood out is you made the analogy between, in the same way we assess physical qualities with the FMS, the strength, the power, the body composition, and we clearly identify where they're strong, so to speak, and where they're weak, going through a similar analysis. I think we've all thought of the lists of the pros and cons. That's a really useful way, at least in our industry, to think about applying it to yourself. But probably the most important thing you said in there, for at least me, is go to the environment that is going to force that quality out of you. I mean, absolutely. To nurture empathy, self-awareness, vulnerability, and appreciation, go to an environment, whether it's volunteering. In your case, it's going to the church, whatever it might be, to improve those qualities. Going to a speaker course that's going to force you to communicate. If you're a strength conditioning coach, maybe go get a personal training job on the side, where you have to work with Grandma Jenny, whose goals are very different than the weekend warrior versus the triathlete versus the odd athlete that's actually in there and what you're accustomed to. I love that. And it's exactly, I didn't think of it this way, but that's why I came to Ireland. I came here because I was searching for development in an area that just the environment I was in could not give me. I think that is absolutely brilliant advice. And it goes right back to the very beginning. you got to be vulnerable. You got to be open. You got to lean into the discomfort if you're true about wanting to get better.
And I think if you're somewhat of a new coach or you're trying to build a business, don't be afraid of, put yourself on the line. Like, I can't tell you how many free sessions I've done in my life, or how many times I've turned to a client who is worth hundreds of dollars and like, one's on me. And they're like, no, that's ridiculous. I'm like, it's just like, it's not ridiculous. I can't buy you anything. You have everything. It's just a gesture. But everyone's so like, they're so panicked about every session and their session price. Let me tell you something. I don't care what coach on the planet. You can have a coach right now that starts making $1,000 a session right now today. In a year, it's going to wear off. Like, it never lasts. Like, and take it from me with this stuff. Like, I've charged some pretty, crazy numbers when it comes down to training. And it's just not like, at a certain point, you're like, all right, well, I'm not making money when I'm training, or I don't know. Well, if I'm charging $1,000, maybe people are going to want to pay $1,200. Like, it's this constant fight. And you hear it about that. It's not always about the money either. Fulfillment's a huge part of this for me. You got to feel fulfilled in what you do. I see too many people who hate their job. You love what you do. I love what I do. Even now, with the times changing, I'm starting to realize that I have a love for different things and a way that I want to approach this. This isn't over for me, man. Like, I'm 43 right now. I plan on being in fitness till the day I die. Like, am I going to be training? Probably not, but you're going to see me doing something fitness related till the day I die.
Okay. So let's hope that that's a long way.
A long time.
Don Saladino. So already I see you as someone who has an eye towards the future, and that you're trying to identify the trends. And in many ways, I see you establishing them through your own work. So pick a decade from now, 2 decades from now, let's say 10 years from now, 5 to 10 years from now, where do you see our industry as movement professionals globally? Where do you see it going, especially knowing that this digital footprint is only going to evolve? What does our industry look like in 10 years?
It might even get worse before it gets better, because I was thinking about this recently. I think right now, because everyone's so enthralled in digital, and there is so much junk out there when it comes down, and someone's putting up workouts that work for themselves, and anyone's doing them. I mean, that's going to become a problem. But I think at a certain point, there's got to be some quality control on all this. Okay. Something bad's going to happen. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get really sick. It's going to happen more. Like, things are going to start evolving. And I think with technology right now, there's ways that things are starting to get smarter. Like, you're starting to look at a lot of the different modalities to measure readiness, and a lot of them are, as terrible. But I've been working with Charlie a lot with Omega Wave lately, and it's opening my eyes to a lot of stuff. And you're starting to see, oh wow, that's interesting. Or I'm wearing War Ring on my ring finger right now instead of a regular wedding ring. And you're starting to see the direction these companies are going in, and the idea. I think the idea is exceptional. Like, the idea is exceptional. The technology with most of the stuff, as it's not entirely there yet. It might be there for someone like you or Charlie or me to be able to apply it to a team. Sure. But for Mrs. Havocamp in Kansas City to open up, a Whoop band and throw that on, like, most of the time, like, she's not really going to know what to do with it. Like, she's gonna look, oh, well, my strain is this, and all right, well, Mrs. Havocamp, what are you going to do with that? Like, what does that mean for you? Then I think already, even though a lot of the information isn't exactly accurate, it's putting people on the right path. Like, you know what I'm finding? I'm finding when I have that second glass of wine, my sleep really gets bad. I'm like, wow, how about that? So what does that mean now? What are you doing with it? I'm trying to keep it to 1 glass of wine a night. I'm like, fantastic.
Absolutely.
The band, the ring, whatever you're wearing, it's doing its job. So I feel like with technology, I think we will come to a point in the future where someone is going to be able to download a program, and they will be able to put on a band that's really simple, and they're going to have their heart rate monitor on, and it's going to tell them exactly, like, you're training for a 5K right now. This is where your heart rate needs to be. This is how we want you to run. I'm doing it with Omega Wave right now. I mean, it's pretty fascinating. And I think we're going to see stuff like that that's going to make everything a lot neater, a lot cleaner, hopefully. But are we there yet? No, we might be closer than we think. But I do know that that's going to separate, I think, a lot of the noise and a lot of the garbage out there. Because it's like nowadays, unfortunately, you could be a terrible trainer. You could be a terrible I don't want to say coach. You could be a terrible trainer, but you can be great at communicating.
Yeah.
and you have a good body and you can be successful. Like you could just have that knack and you could be successful. And that for me, gets frustrating. Listen, I've been on the cover of Muscle. Like I shouldn't be saying this, but it does get frustrating because you see so many people out there. Like Boyle said to me once, he's like, we were joking around. If you saw Mike Boyle on the beach and you had all these other muscle heads that had, apps and technology and you didn't know training, you didn't know fitness or strength and conditioning coaches, would you go to Mike Boyle? Like he's a 56-year-old guy.
Yeah.
I think he's
Yeah.
studly and I think he looks great
Yeah.
without a shirt on. I'll tell him it's his face, but
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
people are going to the guy with 5% body fat.
Yeah.
No, I would go to Boyle. So that's
Yeah.
just perception's everything, unfortunately.
Well, and I think just to piggyback on your point, there's no doubt that technology is only going to improve and it's only going to tell a better story. But I think it's to that point, it's going to have to improve its storytelling for it to really take hold at the level that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that is if we are going to, which I hope we never get to, but if we really remove the human in this picture, that whatever the technology, notably if it has to do with movement, the way that that movement is communicated. And now you probably know where I'm going with this and I'm biased.
100%. I love it. I love it.
But at the end of the day, if this just tells me, hey, your hip was here, your knee was here, or you need more degrees there, it's not enough. It goes back to the clients. So these companies who I think have a lot of the technical intelligence and IP are going to need to figure out how the user experience gets authentic and at the same time can even improve, whereby the way they get the info off the app and off the program into the person. Because for me, I think that's the stopgap.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's flawed. We all know it's flawed. And we know it's flawed because I can't tell you how many people use a lot of these devices and they get it and they don't really know what to do with it. Yeah, so I think that's a big problem. I mean, listen, we're talking about the future. I've seen some things with artificial intelligence now that's being launched, and it's wild stuff. I mean, when you think about that, you're like, wow, like you can imagine being able to screen someone on some AI board. Like, is that gonna replace Nick Winkelman? No, it's not. I don't think it's ever gonna. I don't think you'll ever replace an exceptional coach.
No.
But I think now, if you could take someone in some land far, far away who doesn't have access to a Nick or a Charlie or a Mike, and suddenly you're able to put some technology in their hand and that replaces some, an uneducated person on a social media platform putting up, let's do crunches for our abs. Like, yeah, that's an improvement. That's better. And they're going to see progress doing that. And that's what I'm kind of excited to see. Is it going to be perfect? I don't know if it'll ever be perfect. Who knows? Maybe not my lifetime, but
I think the opportunity then is not only that the technology, let's say, expands the reach of our industry, but also there's opportunities for industry professionals to partner with these technology companies. Like I know you do in many cases. Your partnership is a big part of your social brand to be able to help them, let's say, improve the quality of that remote client. And so just thinking outside of literally the box, this might be an opportunity for professionals as well. We talk about the side hustle. Well, these are legitimate things that people need to be thinking about because technology is coming and you either get on board with it or you don't.
Yeah, 100%.
So Don, I think that's a perfect way to end. We've ended with the future, a positive in mind. Any last words, anything you want to share with our global community, especially in the time we find ourselves that we haven't covered off?
Yeah. A couple things actually. First thing would be, I mean, yes, with all these trying times, we're going to get through it. Like I'm positive when it comes to this sort of thing. Like it is some rough times right now, but keep your head to the grindstone and keep pushing, keep working hard. And guys and girls, men and women, do things for the right reasons. Don't do it to be social famous. Money is important. I get that. But it also, if that's all you're focused on, you're never going to get there. A good business plan, you start at the finish. Like you establish, where do you want to be 10 years from now? Where do you want to be? You work backwards. When you're training someone, if someone's coming to Nick to get ready for an event in 3 months, Nick has that event in mind. He works backwards and then he focuses on what that individual needs every single day because it's going to change. Is no different. Business is going to change. The human body is going to change. We have to adapt. We have to call audibles. That's what coaching's about. So if you sit here and obsess about losing 20 pounds and you're jumping on a scale 3 times a day, you're probably not going to lose 20 pounds. But if you get a great plan in place, you do what you need to do, and you turn around 2 weeks later and your clothes are fitting you better, then just keep your head down and keep going. It's the same thing with business, right? So I think a lot of these analogies that I like to give between training and which a lot of people listening know a lot about, and business, they are very similar. And trust your gut and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Get yourself out there.
Beautiful. Don, where can people, if they want to learn a bit more about you and what you're trying to do with this community, where can they find you?
Thank you very much. So my website's donsaladino.com. My Instagram is Don Saladino, and that's it. If you guys want to DM me, hopefully I get it. I have a team with me right now who's trying to help me genuinely answer all the questions. And there's some riffraff in there, so we're trying to. I just have them eliminating a lot of that stuff. But if it's a genuine question that comes in, 99.9% of the time, I'm getting to it. So hope to hear from you.
Don, in a world of a lot of noise, you are one great signal, my man. So thanks you so much for joining us. And thank you for listening in, whether you're live with us this evening or on YouTube. And we'll see you back here in a few weeks for another coaching conversation. Thanks, Don. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Next, thank you.